The Rooikat Afrikaans for caracal, the sleek, tufted-eared wild cat of southern Africa, begins not in an engineering workshop but in the dust and savanna of southern Angola, where the South African Defense Force was conducting one of the most operationally demanding and least publicized wars of the Cold War era. From 1975 onward, the SADF found itself fighting a sustained counterinsurgency and conventional bush war simultaneously, hunting SWAPO insurgents along the vast, sparsely populated terrain of Namibia, then known as Southwest Africa, while engaging Cuban-backed MPLA forces deep inside Angolan territory in a series of increasingly large conventional battles. It was this dual pressure, a guerrilla war on one front and mechanized conventional war on another, that forced South African military planners to confront a problem they had long deferred. The SADF's armored reconnaissance capability was dangerously inadequate. For most of the border war, the SADF relied on the Eland armored car, a South African license-built derivative of the French Panhard AML, armed with a 90mm gun. The Eland had served with distinction, most spectacularly during the Battle of Ibo in 1975, where a small South African force routed a far larger MPLA Cuban column. But by the early 1980s, its limitations were increasingly apparent. It was relatively lightly armored and sluggish over the kinds of terrain the war demanded. More critically, the threat environment was escalating. Cuba had introduced the T-54 and T-55 main battle tank into Angola in significant numbers, and later the more modern T-62. Soviet-supplied anti-tank missiles and heavy artillery were proliferating. The Eland, whatever its earlier successes, could not be expected to survive contact with modern Soviet armor. The SADF needed a purpose-built wheeled tank destroyer and reconnaissance vehicle that could outrun anything it could not outfight and fight anything it could not outrun. The development project that would eventually produce the Rooikat was formally initiated in the early 1980s, managed by Armscor, South Africa's state armaments corporation, which had been established in 1968 precisely to circumvent the international arms embargo imposed on the apartheid government. The embargo, rather than crippling South African military development, had the paradoxical effect of spurring extraordinary indigenous capability. By the late 1970s and into the 1980s, South Africa was designing and manufacturing its own artillery systems, infantry fighting vehicles, combat aircraft modifications, and a new generation of armored fighting vehicles. The Rooikat was thus not merely a piece of military hardware, it was a symbol of strategic self-sufficiency in the face of international isolation. The design philosophy that guided the Rooikat's development drew directly from the lessons being learned in Angola and Namibia in real time. South African commanders emphasized speed and strategic mobility above almost everything else. The theater of operations stretched across hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of semi-arid bush, savanna, and river-cut terrain. The road network was minimal. Logistics lines were long and vulnerable. What the SADF needed was an armored vehicle capable of moving faster than an enemy could react, covering enormous distances under its own power, and yet possessing the firepower to destroy Soviet-era tanks when the moment came. The resulting specification called for a wheeled vehicle. Tracks were rejected as too maintenance-intensive and too slow over the specific terrain profiles of southern Angola, capable of road speeds exceeding 120 kilometers per hour and cross-country speeds competitive with tracked vehicles, while carrying a gun large enough to threaten any armor it might encounter. Several prototype configurations were evaluated through the early and mid-1980s under harsh field conditions. The South Africans considered both 76mm and 105mm armament options before settling on a 76mm gun for early prototypes, though this was eventually superseded. Armscor's engineers worked under the twin constraints of the arms embargo and the operational demands being telephoned in, effectively, from an active war zone. The suspension system, the engine choices, the hull configuration, all were shaped by the specific and unforgiving demands of southern African conditions. Soft Kalahari sand, rocky koppies, dense bush, and river crossings without bridges. When the final Rooikat design crystallized, it was an 8-wheeled armored car of approximately 28 tons, powered by a turbocharged diesel engine producing around 563 horsepower, giving it a road speed of 120 kilometers per hour and a range of over 1,000 kilometers, figures that remained impressive by global standards for decades. The production Rooikat that emerged from Armscore's development program was, by any objective assessment, one of the most capable wheeled armored fighting vehicles in the world at the time of its introduction. Its primary armament was the GT-4 76mm gun, a high-velocity weapon capable of defeating contemporary Soviet armor at combat ranges when firing armor-piercing, fin-stabilized discarding sabot ammunition. This was subsequently upgraded in a later variant to a 105mm gun, the Rooikat 105, bringing its anti-armor capability to a level that threatened even main battle tanks of the era. The turret was fully stabilized, permitting accurate fire on the move, a feature that many Western-wheeled vehicles of the same period could not reliably claim. Its fire control system included a laser rangefinder and modern ballistic computation, enabling first-round hit probabilities that were competitive with purpose-built tank destroyers. The vehicle's armor protection was calibrated to a specific and rational threat assessment. The Rooikat was designed to defeat 23mm armor-piercing cannon fire across its frontal arc, reflecting the ubiquity of Soviet Zu-23 and ZSU-23 anti-aircraft systems, repurposed for ground fire suppression in Angola. It was not designed to absorb tank gunfire. That was never the intent. The Rooikat's philosophy was the antithesis of the main battle tank's brute force approach. Where a tank accepts punishment and bludgeons through, the Rooikat was conceived to use speed, range, and situational awareness to avoid being hit at all. Its 8-wheel drive configuration with independent suspension gave it exceptional cross-country agility. A central tire inflation system allowed the crew to adjust tire pressure from inside the vehicle while moving, dramatically improving performance across different terrain types, from hard-packed dirt roads to soft sand, without stopping. The vehicle could also continue moving on multiple flat tires, an important combat survival feature. The crew of 4, commander, gunner, loader, and driver, worked within a vehicle that represented a significant leap in South African armored vehicle design. The commander had access to an independent panoramic sight, allowing him to scan for targets while the gunner tracked and engaged a different contact simultaneously, a feature known as hunter-killer capability that was, at the time, the preserve of only the most advanced NATO main battle tanks. The Rooikat's overall situational awareness systems, communication suites, and nuclear biological chemical protection reflected a vehicle designed not for the insurgency-focused border war it had missed but for potential large-scale conventional warfare on the African continent and, in the minds of planners, possibly the defense of South Africa itself against a future ANC-aligned or Soviet-supported conventional threat. The tactical doctrine developed around the Rooikat reflected South Africa's unique operational heritage. The SADF had developed, through years of hard experience in Angola and Namibia, a style of maneuver warfare that emphasized initiative, speed, and aggressive exploitation of success. A doctrine sometimes described as fire and movement at the operational level, with a premium placed on independent thinking by junior commanders. The Rooikat was designed to slot into this doctrine as the reconnaissance and anti-armor backbone of the South African Armored Corps. It would operate in troops of 3 vehicles, conducting long-range patrols ahead of the main force, fixing enemy armor with fire, and exploiting gaps far faster than any tracked vehicle could manage. Against a force equipped with Soviet tanks in the open terrain of sub-Saharan Africa, this represented a credible and innovative approach. Production of the Rooikat began in 1989, with the vehicle entering formal service with the South African Army in 1990. The first units to receive it were the armored car regiments of the SADF, units that had been equipped with Elands through the long years of the border war and were now receiving a vehicle of an entirely different generation. Training was intensive. The Rooikat's sophistication demanded a higher technical baseline from both crews and maintenance personnel than the Eland had, and the SADF invested significantly in conversion courses. The vehicle was received with considerable enthusiasm within the Armored Corps. Its performance in trials and training exercises consistently exceeded expectations. Its ability to sprint across the veldt at 120 kilometers per hour was, by the accounts of crews who drove it, an almost visceral experience. A 28-ton machine moving with the urgency of a sports car. Approximately 242 Rooikats were ultimately produced, serving exclusively with the South African National Defence Force, as the SADF was redesignated following the political transition of 1994. The vehicle was exported to no foreign customer, a reflection partly of South Africa's complex post-apartheid diplomatic repositioning and partly of the niche nature of the vehicle's design, calibrated so specifically to South African terrain and doctrine. Several upgrade programs extended the Rooikat's capability over the decades, including the aforementioned 105mm gun variant and various improvements to its electronics and protection systems. The most arresting fact about the Rooikat is not what it did, but what it did not do and the timing of why. The border war, the conflict that had driven every specification, every design decision, every engineering trade-off in the Rooikat's development, effectively ended in 1989. The New York Accords, signed in December 1988, committed Cuba to withdrawing its forces from Angola and South Africa to withdrawing from Namibia. Namibia achieved independence on March 21, 1990. The Rooikat entered service that same year. The war that had made the Rooikat necessary, the war against which it had been measured and designed, was over before a single production vehicle had turned its wheels in anger. The gap between the vehicle it was designed to replace and the operational context it was built for had closed just as the replacement arrived. This timing was not merely unfortunate in the abstract. It was operationally significant in ways that are still debated among South African military historians and defense analysts. The Rooikat had been specifically engineered to deal with the T-54, T-55, and T-62 tanks that Cuba and the MPLA had deployed in Angola. At the Battle of Cuitaquanavale in 1987 and 1988, the largest conventional battle on African soil since the Second World War, the SADF had fought desperately with Oliphant tanks, Centurion derivatives, and an assortment of artillery and infantry against exactly the kind of Soviet-equipped armored force the Rooikat had been designed to hunt. That engagement, whose outcome is fiercely contested to this day by South African and Cuban veterans, was in part shaped by the simple fact that the SADF had no fast, long-range wheeled tank destroyer capable of ranging deep behind enemy lines to disrupt logistics and headquarters. The Rooikat would have been that vehicle. It arrived, ready for precisely that fight 12 months after the fighting stopped. The counterfactual is genuinely interesting. South African doctrine in Angola favored deep penetration raids and flanking maneuvers over frontal engagement, the famous fire force and Chakwane operations that had defined the SADF's operational style. A troop of Rooikats, capable of 120 kilometers per hour on the roads between Cuitaquanavale and Monongwe, with night-capable fire control and the firepower to defeat Cuban armor, would have introduced a genuine operational dilemma for the MPLA Cuban command. The SADF's inability to exploit its tactical successes around Cuitaquanavale into strategic outcomes was partly logistical. The distances were immense and the supply lines punishing, but also partly a function of the absence of a mobile, hard-hitting vehicle that could range ahead of the main force without requiring the kind of logistical tail that tracked armor demanded. Whether the Rooikat would have materially changed the outcome is unknowable, but the vehicle's designers clearly believed it would have changed the character of the fighting profoundly. After 1990, the Rooikat settled into the life of a vehicle in a military that no longer had a war. The new South African National Defense Force, reshaped by the political transition that brought the ANC to power in 1994, was a fundamentally different institution from the SADF. Its mandate shifted away from conventional warfare toward peacekeeping operations on the African continent, humanitarian missions, and internal deployments. The Rooikat was superbly ill-suited to most of these missions. You do not need a 76mm gun and 120 km per hour of speed to manage crowd control or escort convoys in the DRC. The armored car regiments that had spent years anticipating the Rooikat's arrival found themselves with a world-class piece of equipment and, for a generation, precious little for it to do that matched its design intent. South African Rooikats did eventually deploy on peacekeeping operations in Burundi and the Democratic Republic of Congo under MONUC and later MONUSCO mandates, and in operations in the Central African Republic. In these contexts, its impressive firepower and mobility provided a genuine deterrent effect, and there were isolated engagements where Rooikats exchanged fire with militia forces. But these were not the armored battles against Soviet-equipped forces across the Angolan savanna that the vehicle had been born to fight. Its combat record, while real, exists in a register far below the operational intensity for which it had been conceived. The deeper legacy of the Rooikat is perhaps best understood not as a story of military hardware, but as a story about the relationship between industrial effort, time, and strategic circumstance. South Africa poured enormous resources and technical ingenuity into the vehicle across a decade of development, under the profound pressure of an active war and an international arms embargo. The result was a genuinely exceptional piece of engineering, and it arrived precisely when the strategic context that had justified its existence dissolved. In this, the Rooikat joins a melancholy tradition of weapons systems that are perfected just as the war that demanded them ends: the German jet fighters of 1945, the American supercarriers designed to fight Soviet surface fleets that were scrapped before the carriers were even commissioned, the innumerable programs whose sophistication outran the clock of conflict. What the Rooikat does tell us clearly is the quality of South African military-industrial capability at its peak. A country under comprehensive international sanctions, denied access to foreign technology, fighting an active and evolving war produced a wheeled armored fighting vehicle that remained competitive with global standards for decades. The 76mm and 105mm armed variants are still considered capable by contemporary analysts, and the basic platform, its suspension, its drivetrain, its cross-country performance, has aged remarkably well. The vehicle continues to serve with the South African Army today, more than 3 decades after its introduction, outlasting the political order that created it and the war that inspired it. It prowls the veldt in training exercises, occasionally deploys across the continent in the blue helmet world of African peacekeeping, and endures as a monument to what South African engineers and soldiers built in the 1980s. A caracal that was ready to hunt, just as the quarry walked off the stage.